Welcome home. This is the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. Come right this way, have a seat with me today in the corner booth one more time, celebrating our 96th week. Hey, maybe we'll make it to 100. Sweeney, clear that floor. Katie, bar the door. Molly, put on just one more pot of Irish coffee. It's time we get this show on the road. We've got another full house today, not a chair to spare. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host. You can reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com anytime. And be sure to check out those written show notes on my blog. I've got links you go to there, and you just click on them, and it takes you to a lot of places I'm talking about. And gosh, if you're getting the enhanced version of this podcast, I've also got some links on just below those pictures there. It'll say some things and take you to something relevant, I hope. So there's two more ways you could enjoy and get a little more out of this podcast. Hey, and remember, phone 816-256-3360 to leave your comments on my recorder. I've got a few comments I have to play either this week or next and get that taken care of. But try that and you'll like it. Now, among today's topics, the original Santa Claus buried in Ireland. Number 2, Carr is the name of the day. Number 3, colorful rats in Killarney. Number 4, the Irish Book of Arms is the book of the week. Number 5, County Cork is the county of the month one more time. And the Barack Obama Hotel is being planned, and guess where at? And number 7, Belfast, Northern Ireland. We've got a few web pages on that today. Well, let's take a look at our notes this week. Christmas greetings to everybody. I hope you're having some peace and tranquility right along with all those sometimes over festive atmospheres of the season. Number 2, I'm getting ready to launch the second season of the Irish Song and Recitation Festival podcast, as I've told you. It should start up in late January, so it's your last chance to get something in for this season. If you've got a song or a story and you want to tell it, just email me and we'll work it out. We can do it by phone or by Skype or by interview. Number 3, our Video Shorts podcast. That's our audio podcast, audio-visual podcast. I guess you'd call them a vidcast. I don't know. That gets pretty complicated, but it's up and running. And last week we covered the History of the Irish in America podcast on that video, explaining a little bit about it to everybody. And this week we're covering the Irish Song and Recitation Festival podcast. And that sort of explains what that's about. And we're getting out there to a lot of people all across the world, so it's really a lot of fun. And they're just real short little videos, these first 14 of them. And later on we'll maybe get into some more genealogy questions. But this sort of covers the gamut, talks about the cafe and what we do and what we offer, and books, what books are important and good, and that type of thing. And a lot of my opinion, including things like Irish tartans, which, of course, Irish family tartans, of course, which never existed in Irish history. But be that as it may, that's a good little podcast, so you might want to just check into that if you haven't already listened to those short little videos. And number 4, we've got some sad news. Our friend at the Dublin Irish Festival, Bob Kirby, passed away recently, and I just want everybody to know that Bob will sure be missed, and our best to Billy and the family. And I had a nice talk with Bob the last Irish Festival there in Dublin. I was sure glad I had the time to do it. And you never know when your next conversation is going to be your last with somebody that you really consider a friend. And just make each conversation count, because each time could be the last. Well, now it's time we're going to move on to the book of the month. Well, today's book of the month is going to be the Irish Book of Arms, Genealogy and Heraldry, and I think I'll just take some samples out of that that relates to somebody's search here today, just to give you a little bit of more idea. Of course, you've got the Irish Book of Arms and the illustrated arms that are in it. some in color, some in black and white. Some of them old and faded because we took them as we found them. Some of them were several hundred years old. But here's a couple of sample extracts from the book that shows you some genealogy information that might be interesting to you. Now, the name would be Anglesea, Anglesea, as they spelled it. And the extract reads, Anglesea, 1768 A.D., with illustrated arms, partially shown. And it says, see works on English peerage under the title of Earl of Anglesea. And the second extract is Richard Bulkeley, Viscount Bulkeley of Cashel, County Tipperary, so created in 1637. The family was long seated in the Isle of Anglesea, which was William Buckley, Esquire, who then lived at Beaumaris in the reign of Henry VI. Chief seat was Barrow Hill, on the Isle of Anglesea, 1 mile from Beaumaris. So that'll do it for that extract, but it just shows you there's all kinds of extra information in there that the heralds might have taken down, so it can be an interesting historical study, not just the pictures of the arms. Well, now, what do we have coming up next? Where in Ireland is St. Nicholas buried exactly? We'll have that for you in just a little bit. But now it's time we move on to the County of the Month. Well, the County of the Month this month, we're going back to County Cork, Ireland, and have some old stuff and some new information we haven't talked about on the podcast before. Of course, we've got a book on that, and that book's County Cork, Ireland, Genealogy and Family History Notes. And then we also have the hardbound book, which is Families of County Cork, Ireland. Two pretty good resources for you to look at if you're interested in County Cork families, genealogy, and background. Now, if we take a look at the 19th century birth index that I think we've done before, you're going to find some real standard names that you know are in County Cork if you've looked at all. Of course, the famous names of Sullivan and Murphy are right up there at the top. And then, of course, you can't leave out McCarthy because they were a major force in that area. And right alongside them, of course, you got Mahoney and Donovan and Walsh and O'Brien, Callahan, Leary. Gosh, I can't tell them all here. They're all beyond the blog. Sheehan, Reardon, Kelleher. Of course, so a lot of these like Kelleher and Mahoney's you're going to find up in County Kerry, too, because the areas are really tightly molded there over the centuries. And, of course, some O'Connors and Hurley and Reagan and Harrington even, Fitzgerald and O'Neill. Now, those were all 19th century major families there, or most populous families. But we can also take a look on that famous old map of the Four Masters. I don't think we've talked about that before for Cork. And these are the names that are in the map of the Four Masters in the 2003 edition, the Connellan translation of the Annals of Ireland that I put together just a few years back. And I'll just breeze through a few names here because I think this county sets a record for the number of families that are noted there on that map. Names like Barnwall and four Barretts, Lord Barrett, and then there's four Barrys, Baron Barry, Earl Barry, Lord Barry, and Barry Og. So, they were big there. And, of course, Capel and Carew and Cogan and Fitzgeralds. And, of course, there was Fitzgibbon and a Fitzgerald, and they were known as the White Knight. Now, I wonder, it doesn't list the Black Knights there, but I bet the Black Knights wouldn't have been the old Irish families, would they? And who else are on that night from the earlier times? A Callanan and a Cray and a Danaher and a Deneen and Donovan, again, a Lord Donovan and just a plain Donovan, and a Driscoll, Lord Driscoll, Hallahan and Hardigan and O'Hay and Hine and Houlihan, which could also be translated as hooligan by some folks, and Hurley and Kelleher and Leary and Lomassy and Ronayne, Scannell, Sullivan Bear and Sullivan Prince and Toohey and Toomey, Roach, Sarsfield, Skiddy, Supple and Walsh. And that's just a sampling. There was 5 or 6 times that on that map, and I put them all in our blog. But that was from the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters. Hey, coming up later in this episode, we're also going to talk about just where they're going to try to build the Barack Obama Hotel. And if you've been listening in the last few weeks, I bet you already know. But now it's time to raise our eyes skyward, give thanks, and ask for help. Here are today's Magnificent Seven. Number 1, new member Joan Denise Harrington of Wynham, Australia, searching for the family of Mary Annie Anglesey or any Angleseys at all. And she's spelling the name Anglesey. Now remember, you can spell that other ways. Number 2, new member Warren T. Cement of Spring Hill, Florida, looking for my grandfather from County Cork, he says, born 1857. Number 3, new member Ann Pay of Surrey, Canada, looking for family in Belfast as little is known. Hey, we're going to have some Belfast sources here in a second that might help you out. Number 4, new member Kathy A. Van Eck of Alto, Michigan, looking for Carr and Kearney and McGinnis and great-grandfather John Mike Carr, who was born in April of 1866 in Southern Ireland. And they went to Westmoreland County in Pennsylvania around 1884. And gosh, I'll have the whole thing typed out on the blog if you see the details. But just to give you an idea, there's great-great-great-grandfather Peter Kearney, born around 1837 in Ireland, and then got married to probably a Margaret Ellen Sweeney, but there's some questions there. And shortly after, they both fled Johnny Bulls to Prussia and then to England a year later. And Ellen and the children went to Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania as well. So that's a key spot for this family search. And she has one more, and that's Edward John, maybe Bernard McGinnis, born 1800 in Portadown, County Armagh, Ireland, and married Elizabeth Jane Osborne in Portadown. And they had a son, James, born in 1835, who married Ellen Murphy. And they both also went to Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania in 1888. And the family notes indicate they might have come from Dublin. Number 5, Paul Vogel of Mount Airy, Maryland. Your Carey, Mayo, and Irish Families books have shipped. Number 6, Beverly Downing of Martinez, California. Your Irish Families on the County California Trail has shipped. And number 7, Adelard Valancourt of Leominster, Massachusetts. Your passenger ship list, Irish to America, has shipped. And you can check our larger search list out online on the webpage too. But those are our Magnificent 7 for the day. Well, now we're going to move on to... Wait, before we move on to... I got to say thank you to all our members, because without you, none of this would be possible. None of the podcasts, not any of the 5 of them that we put out, the 5 different series, or the books, or any of the time we've had to spend together over the years at festivals and the like across the country. None of it would be possible, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has been a member or is currently a member or who's getting ready to sign up right now, because it really helps. You're our only form of support. There's no government programs here. There's sure no bailout. But now I think you know what it's time for. It's time we move on to the Irish family name of the day. Well, the name of the day today is Carr, and they spell it C-A-R-R. And it's in honor of member Kathy Van Eck, who we talked about up there in the Magnificent 7 today. And there's all kinds of ways to spell that name. You can spell it with a C at the beginning, or that C can become a K easy enough. And it can become Kerr rather than Carr. And it can come from other names, like a name like McElhair or McElhar could be shortened to Carr. And Currain or Curran, that can be shortened to Carr on occasions too, so keep your eyes out when you're searching all those records. And it's in variant spelling groups number 246 and 1002 in the Master Guide to the Various Spellings of Irish Family Names. I've got a link to that on the blog too. Now, if we take a quick look at the history of the name of Carr, what are we going to find? Well, we're going to find that there's a lot of different ways the Carr family name came about, like we spoke. And it can also be of English extraction, and it can be of Scottish extraction, particularly when you think of the name Kerr, K-E-R-R. It can just slip right on over there into Carr. And, of course, we already noted several of the Kerry names can be changed to Carr. Several of the Irish names can be changed to Carr. Names like Kerry can be shortened to Carr. So keep your eyes open, like I said. And in the census of 1659, you find Carr as a principal name in County Down and in Meath. And the birth index shows the name to be in Donegal, Galway, and Dublin at the turn of the century, too. And if you want to complicate matters, just keep looking. You'll find more sources. Milesian Families gives the name as coming from Scotland as well, and they even specified the date of 1602. And they said that they settled in Cork and Limerick. But that, of course, is not substantiated by that book, but most of the things in that book I found so far really do check out. And you also know that in the 17th century, the family is also listed as a principal name in Armagh and Down. And there it's listed as O-Carr, an O before the name. So that would sure seem to point to an older Irish heritage and more likely of Irish origins than English or Scottish. Well, that was taken from the Book of Irish Families, Great and Small. That's the master volume to our set, our Irish Families Project, 34-volume set on Irish families. And if we take a quick look down at the Irish family coats of arms, what's in the Irish Book of Arms? Nobody's found as far as spelling it as C-A-R-R, but that's common that people are not in the Irish Book of Arms, so take heart. But we go to the Free Master Index search of Irish names on our webpage, and what do we have? We find that family 65 times, and it includes the following examples. 1, Mary Carr in the book Irish Families on the California Trail. First initial G. Carr in the County Dublin Genealogy and Family History Notes book. And in the Journal of the American Irish Historical Society, we find reference to a Margaret Carr and then to a Patrick Carr, who was a victim of the Boston Massacre. So that goes way back in American history. And then we also find the first ferry on the Merrimack, listed with James and Michael Carr, so there's a story there too, and all those were from the Journal of American Irish Historical Society. And lastly, let's see, we'll just take this one out of those 65 listings. Names of Irish Passengers to America. That little book has 9 cars listed in it, and that should make you take heart if you're looking for family history. There's plenty out there on the cars, I think. Let's just move right on now to the website of the week. Well, we've got 4 websites of the week this week. Number 1, we're going to pick a list of immigrants from Belfast, and that's actually on Ulster Ancestry. And you'll be able to just link to that directly from my blog. And I'll try to put something in the enhanced podcast if I can. And number 2, Belfast, Ireland Genealogy Forum. You can either Google that or go to the blog and just click on it. Number 3, the Irish Roots Cafe video shorts. That's our video podcast I talked about at the opening of this broadcast. You can go there and see the first 2 or 3 we've put out. And number 4, the Carr Family Genealogy Forum. That's the Carr Family Genealogy Forum, and that's on the Gen Forum, and you can click on that on the blog, and you'll find it. And my blog's on my webpage, so check it out if you're looking for car information. You might find a connection. Well, now it's time we move on to that final segment for the day, and if you've been listening, you know it's the Curious News and Notes. Well, today we see that Belfast has been named one of the top 12 world destinations for 2009 by Frommers. That's the travel people. And they also said it was moving back towards its former position as the Paris of the North. That's what they say Belfast was known as in the 19th century. And also on that list of those 12 top destinations were Saqqara, Egypt, Walhiki Island in New Zealand. I might have to go to that one. That sounds real interesting. And the Civil Rights Trail from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in the U.S. That's not I guess that's a destination. It's more of a outstanding sight, but they included that in that top 12 list, so there's some places you might want to go to. Move on to number 2. The Irish Times say they've got clear evidence after historically checking it all out that jolly old St. Nicholas of Myra, who was the original Santa Claus, was buried near Jerpoint Abbey in County Kilkenny. Now, old St. Nick died in AD 342, and the report from the Times says that the Norman invaders later played a large part in bringing him to Jerpoint. That sounds like a story that might bear some more investigation. I've got the link on my webpage, and it's with the Irish Times, but it's a long address, so if you hit that on the webpage, you'll on my blog, you'll be able to get there and read more about it. Number 3. Meanwhile, school children are waiting for the modern-day Santa Claus to arrive by helicopter in Killarney this year. Now, something seems a little out of whack about that after listening to the first story where the original St. Nick is buried up in Jerpoint Abbey, but then again, maybe that real St. Nicholas would get a kick out of the whole thing. That is, after you explain just what a helicopter was. Number 4. A poor puppy was stranded for 5 days inside a car in Dublin as his owner, who was from County Monaghan, could not remember where the car was parked. Now, he was apparently not familiar with Dublin at all, but, if you're living in Monaghan, you might not have a reason or an inclination to go into Dublin too often. And the fellow who spotted the poor puppy, Daniel Duggan, was the one that led people to his rescue, and although the pup was a little worse for wear, he survived, they say, by licking the windows for moisture over those 5 days he was standing, and that's an interesting point. You can also read more about that on the blog if you click the link I have to the Independent. Number 5. An underground street artist has been sneaking out in Killarney painting small rats in unique poses, and that's in over 20 places in Killarney, including the Brakeen restaurant on High Street. Boy, I've taken several groups there when I led tours to Ireland way back, their old location, and then after they rebuilt it. And they uncovered an amazing letter when they tore down the walls when they were rehabbing the place. It was from an Irishman who had gone to the U.S. and written back home, and it was really an interesting piece. And I believe he might have even mentioned that he had changed his name when he got to the States. But at any rate, these pictures of those rats are apparently pretty popular, and they appear on walls and doorways all over the town. And they say also that nobody's reported it officially to the police, so maybe it's one of those things that might just work out. Number 6. It had to happen. A Montreal man is opening up the Barack Obama Hotel, or at least he's applied for permission to start the building. And it's Mr. Liam Carroll is making application for those building permits, and it would be a 150-bedroom hotel. A pretty big event for this small town that housed one of Barack Obama's ancestors. And before you know it, there's going to be Barack Obama hot dogs and Barack Obama chocolate shakes and fries, and good gosh, who knows what else might happen. But you know what? That's all what it takes to survive in this world today. That's an enterprising individual, and I tell you what, the Irish sure have got it of late. Well, that does it for now. Remember to send your comments by clicking the contact link on our webpage at irishroots.com, or send by mail to our American address at the Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri 64116. Leave your message or report on things in your part of the world when you call my phone recorder at 816-256-3360. And you can also Skype me at Irish Roots Cafe, or see me on MySpace at Irish Roots Cafe. Members foot the bill, so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members. And away.